Hi, this is Pat Duckworth, the author of Hot Women Rock, How to Discover Your Midlife Entrepreneurial Mojo. And we've broken our way into 2018. And so I'm really excited to have my first guest of 2018. And she's a storyteller with 20 years of multimedia experience in digital, print, video, radio, television, and podcasting. In 2012, she founded Chic Rebellion Media. I love that name. A multimedia company that empowers women to share their stories. Since July 2016, she's produced and hosted the Support is Sexy podcast, and I'm so privileged to have been on that. It's a 5-day-a-week podcast featuring interviews with successful women entrepreneurs, leaders, founders, and creatives around the world. Support is Sexy has more than 200,000 downloads. It reaches listeners in 125 countries, and to date, she's interviewed more than 200 inspiring women. Fantastic. So it's a big welcome to Elayne Fluker.
Thank you.
Hi, Elayne. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be the first person for 2018.
Isn't that wonderful?
That's wonderful.
So I want to find out all about your entrepreneurial journey. Let's go right back to the beginning and tell me how you started out. When you first stopped studying and started out, what did you do?
Oh, before all of this, the first thing I did was actually back in 2006. I had a personal assistant agency for celebrities. I worked in the magazine industry at the time. I've been in media for many years, as you mentioned, and a lot of friends at that time, Facebook, I don't even know if they were around at that time. That's how long ago that was. But people used to ask each other if they were looking for assistance. And I would say, I know this person, or refer you to that person. And I came up with this idea of forming an agency that would find assistants for celebrities. And it was while I was working full time. It was a great business. And I will tell you, if there are any regrets about business, this is one company that I wish I held on to for a little while longer, because I got another big job and eventually I let it go. But I had great clients in LA. People use assistants a lot in LA at the time. Great clients in LA who were on television and in movies and doing all of these great things. And that was my first real venture into planting a stake and saying, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And that was the beginning of it all.
So what were you doing before you became an entrepreneur? Because this always intrigues me, What were you doing before that?
I worked in media for many years before that. I started in 1996 was my first. I started as an intern, but my first job in the publishing industry in magazines in New York. So I've always been a writer. That's my passion. It always has been, and it still is. And I got a job at a magazine. And then from there, I just stayed in the business. So that's what really kept me from being an entrepreneur. I think that part was always in me, wanting to create something of my own to solve a problem. But at that time, it was, I have a great job. I'm going to keep doing this. So that's what I did before then.
So then you had this fabulous agency. So I'm a little bit jealous about that one. What did you do next?
And then after that, I was still working at that time, actually. I had no intention of leaving my job. And then actually one of the magazines I was with closed, and I was able to focus on the agency full time for a while. I got a great severance, so that's always good, right? So I was able to focus on it for a little while, and it was doing really well. But then I got another job offer, and I wasn't even really looking, but these great opportunities were coming, thank goodness, which I'm very excited about. And I kept it for a while, but that job was a lot of high pressure, needed a lot of attention, and eventually I closed the agency and moved on. So it wasn't until 2012 that I started Chic Rebellion TV, which was before it became the media company it is now. And it was an online video platform featuring videos with women of color, because it was a really empty space of us being able to share our stories, and a lot of things on reality TV at the time weren't exactly representative of everyone. So I started this online video platform and launched that in 2012. Again, Pat, while I had a job. So I was doing all this while I had a job. And then I had that for a few years. And then in 2015, I kind of had a quiet moment. I remember it was around the holidays time at the end of the year. And I thought, is this really what I want to do? It had been 3 years at that time. And the site was growing, but revenue, I was kind of funding it all myself. But even more than that, I just felt, is this the thing? Because I feel like I can really do anything as far as if I really put my mind to it and want to do some kind of creation or business or that kind of thing. But, when you're starting a business, you have to think, is this the thing I really want to put all of my energy into? There's going to be a lot of hard times, and not to be afraid of those things, but think about, is it really aligned with who you are becoming and what your vision is? And that's the kind of period that I went through around the holidays. And I decided that it wasn't, which was hard for me to let go because I had invested so much time, money, years. I had a woman working with me who was doing all of my social media. In any case, I decided to stop then. And it was actually during that holiday period that I started this thing called support is sexy, which was a phrase I was starting to say to people after I learned about the importance of support. And I just decided, let me just get the word support is sexy on social media, see if it's available. That's sort of where we start, domains and social media. And that began a journey of going into creating this, what is now Support is Sexy, the podcast and the mastermind and some of the other things. But it started with me just saying, I'm just going to put positive quotes and things from women entrepreneurs and people I admire on social media. And that was December 2015. And then it just continued to evolve.
So what really inspired you about Support is Sexy? I mean, I really feel that we've entered into this period of, realizing that competition can be quite destructive, whereas collaboration has so much more potential to it. So is that what drew you to it?
Yes, I took a workshop in 2000 and I believe it was 2015 called Momentum in New York. And it really is a personal development workshop, but so it just moved me so much. It's over a certain number of days. There's the basic one, advanced, and then the leadership one. And it's people from all around the city, but really all around the world travel to this workshop. And during that time is when I really discovered how much I personally had trouble asking for and accepting support. So sometimes I notice even when we ask for it, especially as women, we don't even accept it. I call it, I got it, quote unquote, I got it syndrome. Can I help you with this, Pat? No, it's okay. I got it. What about this? Oh, I got it. We could sort of have this, I don't know if it's a New Yorker thing, but it's just, I got it syndrome. So, but in that group, what I realized was not only how much that affected me, but I was surrounded by all of these great leaders, and people in this workshop are really movers and shakers in their industries. And I discovered two things that were hardest for us to ask for: love and support. And it was really life-changing for me to be able to witness that in them and to feel it in myself. So during that time, I sort of started saying, support is sexy. Because when you think of something as sexy, it's not sexual, but something you want to get close to or have fun with, a sexy vacation, your sexy dress, those kind of things. And then I started saying it to people, well, support is sexy. And I could see them, Pat, really light up whenever I said it. Like, oh, yeah, it's just one of those things like, oh, I never heard that. And then other people started repeating it. So that's sort of where the phrase came from, being a part. I give Momentum all credit, being a part of that group, and then coming up with this idea of how for myself to be able to accept support even more, and then sharing it with people. And that's where that inspiration started. And then Support is Sexy as a hashtag, and the social media things came about later, and then it blossomed.
Yeah, I love it, because we have to find these phrases, these words that make people smile. Particularly, I think with women, if you can get them smiling, they go, oh yeah, now I understand.
Right.
It might be something that's really important, but you can still smile about it, and you remember it, and you kind of want to share it when it's like that.
Exactly. And what I like to say is having it all doesn't mean doing it all alone.
Yeah.
So that's what I say support is sexy means. And I think, as you said, that we're moving overall, I think, especially women, I'm very passionate about moving towards this idea of collaboration. There's so many ways for us to do that now. You and I are in different places talking, and we've connected several times and supported each other. So we are all, I think, thinking more like that now more than ever. And we need to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm involved in a book project at the moment, and there are women collaborating at the moment on 4 continents, but it may end up with the fifth continent. And so we're, using all the IT, we're talking over Zoom, we're sending documents and sharing documents, and it's just so possible now, isn't it, to work with people anywhere in the world.
That's right. Support is everywhere. It's all around us, all over the world. But think about if you weren't open to it and you thought, I'd have to do this project myself. Yeah. And sometimes I don't know about you, but I feel like growing up, I was certainly conditioned to be ambitious and a go-getter and all of those things, which is fantastic, but it also can be isolating. And I think for me at the time, especially in a place like New York, where you're surrounded by millions, but there are times when you can really feel alone. And as an entrepreneur, there's certainly times that, I mean, people are being much more open about that now, even just the isolation and the importance of being around other people in general, so that you don't end up depressed or going through all of these this negative self-talk and those kinds of things. So again, more than ever, I think support, collaboration. You don't, as I say, you don't have to do it alone.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. That's such an important point, that you don't have to do it all yourself, whatever it is. So what would you say that the support is that most women need? Is there a common theme to what you've heard women say when you've interviewed them?
I think creating safe spaces to have conversations that we might be afraid to have elsewhere. And that might not, it doesn't mean that something even quote unquote terrible is going on. Sometimes just saying, I don't understand how to use Zoom is a big deal for some of us, you know,
Yeah.
things like that. Or I don't know how to do this, or do you know how to do that? I know I've spoken to some women who are, and, you know, Facebook groups obviously are very popular. I have one, you have one, we all have them. They're a great place to communicate, but some women have told me just about my group, which is a little bit more intimate, that they like that they can come in and ask questions and get feedback and don't feel as judged. Now, of course, this might be our own feelings. Usually it is. Other people in these bigger groups, they aren't thinking, oh, well, Elayne's thing is so ugly. I just, you know, there all these thoughts we're having ourselves. But I think what's been the most revealing to me is hearing women just say, I love that I can come in here and share anything. I mean, we've had women come in and say, I'm really lonely. This entrepreneurship thing is hard. And then people will contact them in their DMs or ask how they can support. So I think having spaces that are really driven by support is the thing. And then you bring whatever else you need to it. That's really the environment I try to foster. And the other day, I don't know if you know Julie Zuzek. I think you might
Yes,
know.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I love Julie. She mentioned in the group, and hopefully she doesn't mind me sharing this, but she said, I didn't know support could be so fun, because we were having fun in an exchange in a thread. So, you know, I think that's been the thing that women have, at least the ones that I've contacted, once they sort of get in that mindset, it just opens them up.
Yeah. And I think, you know, particularly if women have come out of corporate work, or like I did,
Right.
out of a big organization, big public organization, there can be that fear factor, and, you know, that feeling of isolation. You've gone from being part of a team, part of a big organization, to being on your own, and you can't just ring the IT guy or get HR to sort something out for you. There can be that feeling of suddenly I need to do everything. And as you've already said, you don't have to do it all by yourself.
That's right. Absolutely. Trying to
So
figure it out,
important.
feeling stuck, and then, or just feeling like, what am I doing? Who am I to, you know, the imposter syndrome thing.
Yeah.
Who am I to do this? And all of those things. All of that comes into play
Oh my
for a lot of
goodness.
us.
So much of it. So this
Right.
is Pat Duckworth talking to Elayne Fluker, the founder of Support is Sexy. So we're talking about lots about support. But there was something that you said earlier on that I'm really interested in, is this feeling of being aligned. You know, that what you're doing, you feel comfortable with and more powerful with, because you feel aligned. Could you
Mhm.
say a bit more about what that means for you to feel that sense of alignment?
Yes, I think what I've learned over time is this idea of, as I said, I feel like I'm very ambitious and driven. And when I decide this is what I'm going to do, I really move forward with it, which is why I do a 5-day-a-week podcast instead of 1 day a week. So I love that about myself, even though sometimes that gets me in trouble. But I will say that what I've learned over the past few years, I think being in this space too, of being open to support and kind of even support from other people, but also listening more to the universe for me, and really even more to myself. I tell people sometimes the most important support is the support you can give yourself.
Yeah.
You know, thinking about how do you show up for yourself? How do you care for yourself? How do you talk to yourself, as we've spoken about some? So with alignment, I've been really trying to get quiet and listen and think about, again, is this the thing I really want to do? How does this feel for me? Of course, there's certain things in business and life that we have to do that we might not quote unquote want to do, but really thinking about, am I being pulled to do this, or am I forcing it? And
Yeah.
that's something that's come up a lot more, even recently in the new idea that I had. I thought, wow, I really feel pulled, almost compelled to do this. It makes me happy to do it. It brings me joy. And that's what I think is one of the beautiful things about entrepreneurship, with all of the other things that we have to juggle, just this opportunity to step back and say, what do I really want to work on and create now as an offering to people? So yeah, that's what I think alignment is, really feeling like this is in line with not only who you are, but I also think a lot about who I want to become, the kind of woman I want to become, what kind of work do I want to do. I know you're very big on vision. We did some of that before, and thinking about those things as well. Is this aligned with who I want to become, or is this keeping me stuck with where I currently am?
Yeah, and there's something in there as well about identity. And I've had this conversation with other interviewees about when you move on from your previous work into being an entrepreneur. And you said it yourself, you've invested a lot in that previous career. So it's a big step to let go of that old identity to step into the new identity as an entrepreneur. Did you find that a challenge?
I found it a challenge because, I was very used to what I was doing before. As you mentioned, we get in these big jobs and you feel comfortable. And I will tell you too, great salary, all of that great stuff, the benefits here in the States and all of those things. So in that way, I found it difficult, but I didn't find it difficult to leave it behind because I was so passionate about what I wanted to do in my business at the time and even now. That's really what has been driving me. As I mentioned, that earlier business in 2006. I wish I had started with that, even though I probably would have sold it by now. But I didn't know. You don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know about doing those kinds of things at that time. But I would say that was the only thing I missed, the knowing that I would get a check every couple of weeks and the benefits and all the other things that come with the job. But otherwise, I really, as tough as it is sometimes, truly love entrepreneurship and think it's what I'm meant to do.
So, a big question that I'm asking my interviewees these days and it's something that fascinates me, is how do you define success now? What is success for you?
Yeah, success for me now is becoming more and more to mean freedom. As we mentioned about working on the things that I want to work on, but also how I feel when I'm doing it. I don't feel the kinds of pressure that I used to feel in a 9 to 5 job. I want to succeed, of course, but freedom is definitely guiding me. How do I feel when I do this? Do I feel like I'm really creating what I want to create? Do I feel like I'm serving in the ways that I want to serve? And I feel free to do that. I don't have to do it a certain way. It doesn't have to look a certain way. It doesn't have to be perfect. Even freedom from perfection is something that I'm trying to be much more conscious of as well. Getting started, sometimes we don't get started, I should say, because we're worried about it being perfect, which really, perfection is subjective, right? There's no such thing. Perfect for me might not be perfect for you. So I'm really becoming much more focused on freedom, and that's what success feels like for me.
Yeah. So, freedom from perfection, I think that's a big one, because I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of women on that first day when they're putting their website out there with their new title on it, they can often delay launching that website because it's not quite perfect. It's not quite what they wanted. And they stop themselves from moving on just because it's not perfect. Trust me, it will never be perfect.
That's right.
As long as it's good enough.
That's right. That's right. And also, I think too, to your point, we also get caught up in comparison and
Yeah.
looking at, as I believe it's Lisa Nichols who says, don't compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. We're looking at, oh, this person has this and that. And the person we're comparing ourselves to is like Tony Robbins or someone,
Yeah.
who has a machine or someone behind them. And it's us in our living rooms just getting started. So I think that's another part of that perfection thing too. Don't worry about comparison. Do you
we,
feel good about it?
yeah. We might even be wearing our pajamas. I'm not
Exactly.
saying.
Right. Exactly.
And
We
that's
might.
okay.
Exactly.
So, what would your top tip be for a new entrepreneur?
One of my favorite quotes is from the tennis legend Arthur Ashe, and he has said, "Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can." And I actually have that quote framed on my bookshelf. It's something a friend gave to me years ago when I actually was working at Martha Stewart. And then she would frame these different quotes for people. And she printed one out for me and I framed it because I really think it speaks to great advice for entrepreneurs, for all of us, really. And just as we talked about, you're comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. But to get started, start where you are. What can you do right now that you really are passionate about, or that you're even if it's not passion, maybe you're just interested in it and you want to sort of see how it works and ask people some questions. So start where you are. Where are you right now? Use what you have, your computer, any other kind of communications that you can have with other people, your network, talking to people, going to meet people, and then do what you can. You're not going to do things on the level of Tony Robbins from your living room in your pajamas, or whatever. Do do what you can. So I really take that every time I start a new project and think about it, or even when I get too caught up in the comparisons and the other things that we talk about. Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. I mean, that's what I did with Support is Sexy with the social media. I said, okay, well, I'm just going, and it doesn't even have to be anything heavy, right? I'm just going to set up the social media and post some things and see how it goes. I wasn't even listening to podcasts back then, but then I started listening to podcasts and this idea came, hey, maybe this Support is Sexy idea, I can use the podcast to sort of push that message. And it has grown, to over 200,000 downloads, and fabulous women like you have been on the show, and it just continues. So just start, and the next step will reveal itself, and the next step, and the next step.
I just have to take a moment here to honor Arthur Ashe, really, because
yes,
I still remember the Wimbledon final with him playing Jimmy Connors. And Arthur Ashe was so calm and would sit down between sets and just meditate and be calm. And Connors was all over the place. And it just sticks in my memory. I don't know how old I was at the time, but I couldn't take my eyes off of it just because of how centered he was. And it wasn't even like he was determined or aggressive or anything. He was just going to win that match. So I love that quote. I'm going to have to steal that quote.
Yes, absolutely. I shared with everyone, honestly.
So Elayne, any of our viewers who are watching this, if they would like to find out more about you and your podcasts and all the other fabulous things you do, how can they reach out to you?
Yes, to find out about the podcast and more about me, you can go to supportissexy.com. I finally got the domain. Yay! Yes, but supportissexy.com will take you to the podcast and also my website, and you can find out more about me and what I'm up to and all the great ways that I hope great ways I support women.
Fantastic. Is there anything else that you want to give away to our viewers or?
Absolutely. Yes. I just launched, I'm super excited about this year, a new service, a podcast booking service focused on women on both sides of the mic. So it's called Girl on Podcast, and that's at girlonpodcast.com. And after this, I will follow up with you and give you a link where people can go and download a cheat sheet for how to be a fantastic podcast guest. Because sometimes that's one of the things we're fearful of. I'm not going to get it right. I don't have anything to say, but I'm sure you can attest to this. Podcasts are really a fantastic way to market your business. It's easy. It's not too difficult. And I really encourage women, especially, to be able to share their voice through podcasts. So I set up this service in order to help you find podcasts to appear on. We do the research for you and all of those great things. So girlonpodcast.com, and I'm going to give Pat a link so that you can download a free tip sheet to help you know that you can do this, right? You're not alone. As we said, you can do this.
And you don't have to be perfect.
And you don't have to be perfect. In fact, that should be number one on the list. That's right.
I love that, actually. Tonya Hoffman, who runs the Public Speakers Association, she has 2 rules for people who want to be in the association. You have to be nice, and you have to not be perfect.
Yes, that's it.
Those are great rules. Those are great rules. I love those rules.
Yes.
Elayne, thank you so much. There's so much we could talk about, because there were things that you were saying that I thought, I want to find out more about that. So perhaps we'll talk again, and I can ask you even more questions. Thank you so much for being my first guest of 2018, and I hope it's going to be a fabulous year for you.
Same to you. Thank you so much.
And thank you to all our viewers. Keep watching out for more of these interviews with wonderful entrepreneurs, and have a great 2018.